Okay, so we just need to call the meeting to order, and we'll do the pledge and roll call and go from there. I'm good. I don't like that close either. Wow.
Do I have enough time to blow my nose?
All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kristen, if we do a roll call?
Mr. Reeser?
Here.
Mrs. Rowe?
Here.
Mrs. Tipping? Mr. Burrow? Here. And Mr. Wagner?
Here.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Just to let everyone know what's going on, we're going to go to executive session under Ohio Revised Code 121.22G, and help me, Kristen.
Oh, no, it might be A.
A, yes, A. We'll be back and conduct the regular meeting after this. It won't be any later than 7 o'clock when we're back, is my plan anyway. That could go off the rails, but that's the plan. Okay, so we need a motion to go into executive session.
I'll second.
Andrea, Patty, Andrea, and then Patty. How's that? Call vote?
Mrs. Tipping? Yes. Mrs. Rowe?
Yes.
Mr. Reeser?
Yes.
Mr. Burrow? Yes. And Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
And it is 6:02. Okay, I'll sit closer. Does that work better? All right.
You know.
You have a better appreciation
Can you hear me
for the
okay?
kids that are in the music room.
Yes.
Chris. We good?
Okay, we're out of executive session and we're only like 7 minutes late, so not too bad. We have any guest or public participation? I don't see any.
Okay, no.
Okay. On to the action item. Oh, legislative report. Patty.
This is going to be a brief one, and because I'm going to defer to John and Kristen for all of the CARES, COVID, all of that. They're much more informed than the reports I have, and I am. But the one main thing that I received was at the last minute today, right before the meeting, that the distribution of $100 million in the CARES Act fund for K through 12 education. The Ohio Controlling Board approved the requests. This was something that was in the works as of last week and even as of 2 days ago. And then they've said now that they, I guess on Monday was when they had approved the request. And it's additional CARES Act funding in the amount of $100 million to the K through 12. And this is it's separate from the $440 million that was recently allocated via the ESSER fund. So that's the newest update. And then they have out on the website a detail as per the counties and districts, the schools. Then also OSBAA had a quick update on 4 different items. One was saying, and this was at the end of last week, they were announcing this, that Governor DeWine would be talking about the $100 million that I just gave the update on. Also, that he announced that the contact sports can now conduct competitive games and tournaments for a trial period that ends today, July 15th. The third item was that ODE announced the foundation funding payments in fiscal year 2021 will now be made at the reduced fiscal year 2020 levels. And then the fourth and final item is ODE also released updated information regarding the difference between blended learning declaration and the remote learning plans. Everything else I'm going to defer to the experts, so that's the end of mine.
Okay. And I'm just going to take a minute before we get into the action items. I've got a letter here from Judge Long. They had a contested case they needed to hold and no place to hold it. They contacted the county and they said they didn't have anything available for them. They reached out to the schools and we were able to take care of them. They're very complimentary of the cooperation and collaboration that Jonathan shared with them, as well as the help of Stephanie, Nathan, and Randy. Judge Long would like to thank you guys personally. And at the end of it, I'll just read the last statement. Circleville City Schools should be proud of not only its beautiful facilities, but also a staff that stands ready to collaborate with other government entities to serve our community. And finally, thank you as board members for agreeing to allow us to use your fine facility. If the court can be of any assistance to the board and the school, please do not hesitate to contact me. So I thought that's pretty nice. Action items. I would entertain a motion we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
I guess I made it, that's good. Andrea seconds. Any discussion?
Did we or could we, I had mentioned if we could disseminate some numbers or letters in behind, so like as we look at personal items, personnel items, and we do like the different staff, that like it'd be like for 3.1, 3.2, so if there ever is an item that we need to adjust or pull out, that we could, carve that one out, or hey, we want to approve 3.123, but 3.4, we want to table or have more discussion on. If we could maybe discuss later and how we could change our agenda and looking at those. And did we add the any, at the end of the agenda, any additional items any board member has? Did we add that this time in this agenda?
The quick answer to that question is no, we did not. The numbering sequence that you requested and the example that you gave me, I looked into, and that's a consent agenda where you make one vote to approve everything. We don't do that, and my mic's being funky. That would have to be something to discuss if we want
Yeah.
to go to a consent
Yeah.
agenda where the board meeting literally lasts 5 minutes. and
Well,
we-
not necessarily a consent agenda, but like in Kristen's area, where there's, like 30 items, where we could maybe number those, so if someone has a question or somebody wants to have a little more discussion next time, we're not approving all 30 items in one big chunk.
Okay.
It's just an idea,
So
not for this
I
one.
understand what you're saying.
Okay.
What we've done in the past, and I think what we would do in the same scenario you're talking about.
Yeah.
Is we would pull out that one item
Okay.
and approve the rest, right? We're not going to vote on every single item.
Right.
So we still have the ability to do that, and we
Yeah.
have done that in the past.
Okay.
So that's something we can discuss.
Yes,
as
sounds good.
have a board retreat or,
Well, I think Robert's Rules of Order allows you during the discussion phase to amend or adjust if there's an item you want to pull out
Yes.
of that, so.
the motion would be made, then there would be a second motion to remove one item, and then we could approve that and then approve the other, and that's the way we've done it in the past, that's the
Yeah.
way we can do it tonight.
No.
Going forward, we can sit down and try to come up with a different agenda. As far as the board discussion, we did discuss that. I was remiss in not getting that put on here. I'll try to do better for the next board meeting, but at the end, we can certainly discuss anything you'd like.
Thank you.
Okay. Call vote.
Mr. Reeser?
Yes.
Mrs. Tipping?
Yes.
Mrs. Roth?
Yes.
Mr. Burrow?
Yes.
And Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
It is recommended the board approve the minutes from the June 24th regular meeting.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Patty and Jeff, any discussion? Call a vote?
Mrs. Roth?
Yes.
Mr. Burrow?
Yes.
Mr. Reeser?
Yes.
Mrs. Tipping?
Yes.
And Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Jonathan, personnel items.
So a number of personnel items, some requests for ESY or extended school year services for Angie Holbrook, one of our awesome aides at the elementary. Substitute technology, this is a reclassification for Nick Grady, who has been a huge support in our technology department. We previously didn't have a substitute technology. We created that. This helps align that from a job description and subclassification. And we're excited to hire a couple new staff members at the elementary school.
Okay, I move we approve.
I'll second.
Jeff? On the new teachers at the elementary school, this is in some way related to social distancing and,
So actually, these folks are filling in for folks who have departed. If you remember
Okay.
our personnel plan, there were a number of positions we were kind of on hold for because of everything that's gone on. These folks are filling in those areas. So this isn't our final request in regards to personnel and social distancing, but this is a step in that direction.
okay. Any
And
other
the
discussion?
one resignation, Caitlin Kirk, how many years of service did she have with us?
Caitlin has been with us for a couple years. She
Great.
subbed with us for a while. Unfortunately, she had different opportunities
Yeah.
and decided that path. What we typically do with full-time bus drivers who do resign for whatever reason, we do request if we can get them back on our sub list for whatever reason, because you can never have enough sub drivers. We have obviously asked Caitlin if she would be interested in that. So hopefully we'll add her to the sub list at some point.
Okay. Any other discussion? Call vote?
Mr. Reeser?
Yes.
Mr. Burrow?
Yes.
Mrs. Roth?
Yes.
Mrs. Tipping?
Yes.
And Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Okay, special services.
Only one special services recommendation for one visually impaired student, South Central Ohio ESC, we've worked with them in the past.
I'll move.
Andrew, Andrew,
I'll second.
Patty? Any discussion?
On this South Central one, are we transporting on that one? The contract was not clear on that.
I can look out in the very bright lights and can't see Mr. Urig, but he can answer that for you. Are we transporting the student?
This-
South Central,
South
or do
Central.
they come to us?
No, they come to us. That's the
Okay.
services provided in our building. from
Okay.
South Central ESC. That's
Great.
not very many audiologists and things that we use from them, so that's why it's so far south, but, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Urig, sir? With this, they service one student for the half day. How many times a week do they come, or monthly, or for?
It's usually based off monthly minutes, and a lot of times they're every other week. But there's times when the schedule doesn't permit that they'll be here every week, or there's even been times when it's a short month that they could be here twice a week even. So it does vary a little bit, but it's just getting the monthly minutes in.
Great.
Okay. Call vote?
Mrs. Tipping? Yes. Mrs. Rowe?
Yes.
Mr. Reeser?
Yes.
Mr. Burrow?
Yes.
And Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Pickaway County East ESC agreement.
Per the revised code, it is a requirement that you work with a partner with your wellness dollars. If you recall, last year we received wellness dollars through the state. That was an initiative brought on by Governor DeWine. And we did not utilize those dollars last year just in being fiscally conscious. We wanted to see, what the environment brought. We aren't Nostradamus here, but that somewhat has worked in our favor, that we can now align ourselves with the ESC and defer some costs from a fiscal perspective on personnel. So this is literally a partnership document that Mr. Ankrum and myself have come up with in regards to how we will spend our wellness dollars. We will then upload that to the state, and that basically aligns how we're spending the money and the partnership agreement we have.
I move we approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
If I may, Jonathan, how many students do we have that are participate in this program? And the costs or billing, is the families, do they incur any costs from this program, or is it all billed through us? Or?
No, so because we utilize this all on salary, it will affect all students, but they won't recognize it. Essentially, we will employ staff. One of just to give you an example, in this document is our preschool coordinator position. And what happens is, from a fiscal perspective, Kristen has a category, a fund that she pays out of. It links to those wellness dollars, which the state requires certain expenditures. One of those is early learning services, so that's how it links with preschool. So there's no opt-in or program per se that parents or kiddos have. It's just basically kind of a back-end agreement that allows us to take those funds and offset costs.
Okay.
Those are in Fund 467.
Okay. I'm not sure. Any other discussion? Call vote?
Mr. Reeser?
Yes.
Mrs. Rowe?
Yes.
Mrs. Tipping?
Yes.
Mr. Burrow?
Yes.
And Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Lunch prices.
So we've, folks recognize that for the last about 7 years, we have been able to be free and reduced lunch for the most part across the district. And that's via a program called the Community Eligibility Provision. And essentially, districts have a free and reduced lunch percentage. And if you are over a certain percentage of students in a building or across the district, you are eligible for free and reduced lunch, or free lunch and free breakfast across the district. Our numbers in the 2010, 12, 13, 14, those went up to the point where we could then claim and everyone was able to get a free lunch. Unfortunately, and I'm going to give a caveat here, our numbers have come down. It's unfortunate because now we're not going to be able to offer free lunch at the high school, but that number is based on a socioeconomic number, which means that in our community, the socioeconomics has actually improved. So next year, unfortunately, at the high school, we will have to go back to a paid lunch. Now, again, any student at the high school who is free or reduced on an individual basis will still get that free and reduced lunch. It simply means the high school as a whole will not qualify. So students who do not qualify from a free and reduced basis will have to pay for a regular lunch, and that's what the prices you have in front of you. The middle school and elementary will still remain free to all students.
Okay,
I'll move.
I'll
Got it.
second.
Andrew? Any discussion?
Could I ask, do we have any stats on how many students receive lunches? And what is our cost? And could we as a district look at that scenario? And since the elementary and the middle school are going to receive free lunches, if it's minimal cost, could we do it for all students and the district cover that cost for our students here at the high school?
So I can absolutely get you those numbers. I will tell you it is not a minimal cost.
No.
It
Okay.
is pretty substantial because it is a federal reimbursement, and essentially what would happen is the board would be picking up that federal reimbursement portion, and it would be substantial. Lunches outside of maybe athletics and textbooks, food is some of our biggest cost. So I can absolutely get you all of the numbers that Susie ran when she provided us this recommendation. I will tell you it is not a minor expense, and not something I would feel very comfortable coming to you and saying, we need to offset this. What I can tell you is every year this is reviewed, and the percentage is 40%. If we thought we were a little bit closer at the high school, we would have pushed to maybe wait a little bit and see what maybe the numbers would change in a few weeks. When they do that again, they're not that close. Elementary, middle school, we're very solid. High school, we're not. So my request would be, I can absolutely get you the numbers, but I would prefer to go ahead and get this out to families so they can plan, and then we will continue to look, and we'll look at it on an annual basis anyway. So, and COVID may play an impact on this as we review next year's numbers.
Thank you for your response. No need to get those numbers because I will rely on your recommendation that, yes, you're reviewing it and look at it, but it's going to be a cost that, is more than just a minimal,
Sure.
So thank you for offering that.
Any other discussion? Call vote?
Mrs. Rowe?
Yes.
Mrs. Tipping?
Yes.
Mr. Reeser?
Yes.
Mr. Burrow?
Yes.
And Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Locally defined graduation seals.
You all may have forgotten that they changed graduation requirements about 14 times in the last 2 years. And one of those
Last
things,
week.
and thanks to Mr. Thornsley and Mrs. Scott for staying on top of this, one of the pathways was school districts being able to create their own local graduation seals. And these are for students who may need an alternative pathway to graduate. We got to determine what those seals were, and then we could plug a student in some of these pathways to help them get to graduation. These are three seals that we are recommending. We actually worked with a group out of Fairfield County who adopted a similar graduation seal provision. We'd like to get that done this evening, full well knowing we might see graduation changes again, but we want to be prepared if not.
I'll move we approve.
I'll second.
Yeah. Any discussion?
Can a student receive more than one seal?
Yeah, absolutely. They don't have to because it's just an alternative pathway to graduate, but absolutely, many students would qualify for all
Yeah,
of these
right.
seals. Yeah. For instance, the student engagement seal, students who are involved in a number of things, a lot of those kiddos are also in fine and performing arts, so they probably would qualify without even trying.
Right. Thank you.
Call vote?
Mr. Reeser?
Yes.
Mr. Burrow?
Yes.
Mrs. Rowe?
Yes.
Mrs. Tipping?
Yes.
And Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Kristen?
Basically, in my notes, I tried to outline a lot of this because I knew we had a bigger pressing issue to discuss tonight. But we do have 2 new funds, which it seems like we've added new funds almost every board meeting lately. And one is the addition of the Adam H. grant, which is about $25,000. And the other is they've decided now to take the 21st century out of 599 and put it into its own code, which will be 509. And so you'll see that on your financial report going forward. I have for approval some advances because we paid a few more items after our June 24th meeting, so we needed to advance some more money to those grant funds. So those are listed for you. And then in your packet, I included the actual figures in the 5-year forecast so that you could see how we actually ended the year. And we did reach one of our target goals of not spending more than we received, that line 6010. I also included a summary of all the staffing for fiscal year 21. And then tonight I laid on your desk the Moody's comment. The Moody's is the board that we went through to get our bond rating, and so they issue a comment every year. It's basically a summary profile of the district along with our solvency, so it's just for your reference. And we got a bit of good news Friday that our school bus grant was approved, so on the agenda next month you'll see the purchase of that school bus. And wanted to let you know we are in the process of refunding all the Camp Odeaqua payments currently because they ruled that there would be no field trips, so we are working with the company. Those will go back. Those are paid through our Easy Pay system, so they will be returned to the person that way. And then Patty was saying what was announced today. Basically, we received an additional allowance for CARES funding, and our portion looks to be just under $115,000. So to kind of summarize that for you, we received the end of the year budget cut that was $373,000, and then our consolidated federal grants were reduced by $92,000. And we are still waiting on our reduction for fiscal year 21. It seems that they're not real clear in the answer as to whether that will be a quarterly adjustment or if it'll be a one-time adjustment. I think maybe they're leaving the window open a little, so, but a big difference in the amount of money if they take it times 4 payments or they just take it times 1. So, but on a brighter side, we did receive the emergency CARES funding, which for the already on the financial report, you'll see that in Fund 507, I believe. And that was $587,000, and then today's portion was in addition to that, and that'll be another $114,000 to $15,000. So all in all, the net effect so far is just under a loss of $120,000. So we're probably faring better than a lot of other districts because we go up and then we go down, we go up and we go down. Some people are just going down. So stay tuned. It seems to change almost daily. We did get one more grant dropped into the CCIP. The CCIP is the mechanism that we use for our grant funding, and but we're still holding out on a couple more that haven't dropped in. So we'll just see how that goes. But all in all, I think we ended the year very well, and we have got rolled over into fiscal year 21 pretty smoothly so far.
Okay. Well, go ahead, Chris, you had a question?
You mentioned Camp Odeaqua. Did the refunds and everything go back for the kids for the Washington trip?
Yes, so they started
Great.
that process, or it was about the 2nd or 3rd week in May. I only fielded one phone call from a parent in regards to payment being corrected. Talked to Kerry from the travel company. He took care of that immediately. So
Awesome.
yes, those should all be processed. If folks are watching and those were not, please call our office, but those should be back.
I had noticed, and I already discussed with Kristen, but I'll let her share with the board, on the 5-year forecast, the capital outlay, we had only $81,000 this year. Next year, we're budgeting, or in the forecast at least, we have $350,000. Kristen, could you just share what you shared with me a little bit?
Yes, the largest expenditure in that category for us is a school bus and a vehicle purchase. And this year we did not do that, so that kind of kept that as at a minimum. But for next year, we've already met with our supervisors and budgeted about $193,000 in that category, which this, it's equipment, fixtures, desks, things like that. It can also be big things like HVAC, repair, that kind of thing. So when we met with them and went over the needs for the district for fiscal year '21, we came up with $193,000 worth of items that we budgeted. And then Friday, in talking with the transportation supervisor, one of our buses is not faring too well. They hope to get it through this year, but we're probably going to have to buy in addition to the one that we are receiving through the state. So there you add another $90,000. So we're getting already very close to $300,000. We had in the forecast last year $350,000 for this year. We can adjust that if we don't think we need to go that high, but that forecast will be prepared and voted on in October. So I noted to Tony, I always like to overestimate my expenditures and underestimate my revenue, so that's probably why it's a little bit high. So that we'll keep an eye on that and see where we end up landing.
Okay. I would move we approve the treasurer's report.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Camp Odiaqua, is that a full reimbursement to the families?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Anything else?
I saw we're sending our final approved certificate of resources for FY20, and I assume you're working on the appropriations
Yes.
for 21 and then the resource certificate for 21
To
as
follow.
well.
Correct. We thought we'd have it together for this agenda, but we had a couple new grants drop in, so I hated to have it approved this month and again on the 5th, so we'll just wait and hold off till the 5th.
Were all of the, I see there were some donations for our persons with disability students that we received in. Were there any other ones or coming in or?
No, those are donations that are being collected to do special ed playground equipment,
Right.
but that's all we have at this time.
Okay. Any further discussion? Call vote?
Mr. Reeser?
Yes.
Mrs. Tipping?
Yes.
Mrs. Rote?
Yes.
Mr. Burrow?
Yes.
And Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Okay. John?
All right, so I assume if folks tuned in this evening that they're waiting on this particular guidance. So before I jump in, I need to create or elicit some caveats and whatnot, because this is not something that as we're rolling out, I hope folks understand that when we roll things out, typically they come with some level of excitement. There are new things we're trying and doing. In creating all of these plans in the months and months and months we've taken thousands of parent survey inputs. We've worked with our unions, we've talked to our classified staff, our administrative team has worked countless hours into weekends and evenings. And this document, as I'm about to walk through it, in our return to school plan is not something we take lightly. There are a number of scenarios here that I'm fully aware are going to impact families differently. And none of them, there is not a perfect reopening school plan in the state anywhere, because what's going on has impacted people immensely in different ways. So I want to say that up front, because I know as I start to talk about masks and I talk about transportation and I talk about schedule, that's going to elicit a lot of different thoughts, reactions, and beliefs. And our goal in this plan was safety for students and staff paramount, number one, and doing all we could in every scenario to keep that the same. And as I walk through here, I'll talk a little bit about that. I do want to say at this juncture, again, I thank a ton of people. I want to thank Darren Flick and Susan Foster, Darren with the EMA, Susan with the health department. I cannot imagine the difficulty of their jobs currently, and they were quick they met with the superintendents every single week, sometimes multiple times a week. They return texts, phone calls. They have been out here to try to help support our students, so I thank them. And I then want to say thank everyone for their patience. I know that this has taken a lot of time. There have been a lot of plans released around the country and even in the state, and I've gotten a lot of questions about when is the day? When is the day? Well, today's the day. But the plan I'm giving you is of today. Because an hour and a half ago, our governor got up and said a bunch of stuff that could impact what happens in a couple weeks. And he didn't give any new plans or ideas or restrictions, but basically his message was if we don't take action now, then there's possibility for lots of things that could end up impacting these school plans. So I want to say this is today, and this is kind of just the beginning. So let me jump in from there. So as we started to create this plan, and truth be told, if you recall on March 13th, we thought we were talking about a 3-week thing, and then we were talking about a 6-week thing, and then we were talking about just to the end of school thing. And we don't necessarily know the timeline as we go through this, but we created some guiding principles. First and foremost, we believe, and we talked to parents, and parents, for the most part, told us, we want to get our kids back in school because we believe 100% the best place for students from a learning and a social emotional perspective is in school. We recognize that is a main premise of why we do what we do. But along with that, it's to do it safely. I particularly am not a health professional. I went to Shawnee State University and Ohio University. I have degrees, numerous of them, in education, and my staff are the best of the best in that scenario. On us, when there is a healthcare scenario, we need to listen to experts, and that's what we've done in this. Our families told us 2 things. They told us, I want my student back in school 5 days a week as much as you can keep them, or they told us, I want my kid at home, not back in school. This plan is going to give both sides of that the options to the best of our ability to offer them. We have tried to be as communicative as possible, transparent as possible, as I'm trying to do now, and in everything we're doing student-centered. And then, our behind-the-scenes social, emotional health, financial supports, as we talked a little bit about tonight, providing internet access and device access, and then obviously equity in our classrooms. So, the biggest call I've gotten, the biggest call I think anyone's getting, is what's it going to look like in the fall in regards to masks? So, our staff know that the expectation is our staff will wear masks at all times. There will be some exceptions. Those exceptions will run through my office. Those are things such as when that will inhibit learning. And in those scenarios, we've already worked with the health department on what the shields need to look like in that scenario. So from a staff perspective, our staff know that they are required to wear a mask at all times. From preschool to 2nd grade, we are highly encouraging students to wear masks, but they are not required. Again, from a parent's perspective, if you have a preschool through 2nd grade student, we are encouraging you to have your student in a mask, but it is not a requirement unless your student is riding the bus, and if your preschool through 2nd grade student is on the bus, as with all students we'll talk about here in a minute, they will be required to wear a mask on the bus or any other district transportation. Students in grades 3 through 12 will be required to wear them on the bus. All students will wear face coverings or masks on buses. Students in grades 3 through 12 will be required to wear them in hallways, bathrooms, congregate areas, and will only be able to remove those in spaces where we can socially distance them. So let me create a scenario for you. I have a 10th grade student. Let me give you my own kid. Absolutely. Actually, 7th grade student, she's going to get on the bus, she's going to wear a mask. When she gets here to school, when she's in the hallway, she's going to wear a mask. When she gets to her classroom, if that classroom is socially distanced, if the seats are more than 6 feet apart, she will sit down at her chair, and that's the time she can take her mask off. Once that class is over, or she needs to use the restroom or leave her seat in any way, shape, or form, she will put that face covering back on, and then she will depart. There are going to be some classrooms in this district that are socially distanced, and students will be able to spread out. For instance, we are sitting in one now. This auditorium will be a classroom space. Students, our goal is that they will be spread out in here. They will be able to take their masks off at that time. There are also classrooms that it is impossible for us to socially distance. It is not a large enough space for us to do that. Students will be required to wear their face coverings during that time. There are again, exceptions. Students who are unable to wear masks for development or medical reasons may be exempt, and they'll work through the building administration, and they can provide a note from a physician for that. So before I move on, I think it's probably imperative that I stop here and gauge any questions this body may have on masks.
Are we going to provide any masks?
So from a staff perspective, we will be providing, we have on hand currently cloth face coverings. And we will work with our staff on what the shield situation looks like. So Mr. Uhrig, Mr. Darlin, they're already on top of that. We feel very confident where we are. We have purchased as well as have actually gotten some donations on disposable face coverings for students. So for instance, if your kiddo shows up to the bus stop, forgot their mask for the day, bus drivers will have those on hand, or they'll be in the front entryways of buildings. If you're dropping your student off, we'll give your student a mask for the day. We encourage folks, if you can, to have your student wearing a face covering that you provide, but if not, we will provide those in those scenarios.
Okay.
For clarification, teachers can wear the face shield?
So teachers who feel like the mask is inhibiting to them teaching will work through us. They'll make a request, and we will provide shields to those folks. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We will be providing an FAQ to teachers here in the next week or so. That'll be a big part, big question, and I know that is. For instance, my wife's a speech pathologist. Everything she does, a child needs to see her mouth moving. So in those scenarios, we will make that accommodation. One thing I will tell you, if staff are watching this, there are requirements on what the shield must look like, how long it must be. It has to be below the chin, or it is not allowable per the health department. So, I haven't told folks to go out and get their own shields, but I know there are a lot of people out there researching and trying to get ready for the fall. I would encourage them to reach out to us. Again, we'll provide an FAQ on that here in the next week or so, but there are some stipulations for shields. So, anything else? Okay. So, per the health department, our families and our students are required to screen themselves prior to coming to school for the day. So obviously the big part of that is a temperature check and a symptoms check. We're going to list and provide a lot of information. This will be on our website. These are the symptoms you're seeing, the same symptoms you see when you walk into any space at this moment. But families, we need you to check the signs and symptoms as well as the temperature of your child before they get on the bus, and staff members will be required to do that as well. Okay, so again, we took a plethora of information from our staff and from families, as well as worked with the health department, and we have created 3 schedules for the school year. So it is our dream, our goal, that all students are back here on Schedule A. Students back here on Schedule A, school will look decently similar to what it was prior to March 13th. Outside of, obviously, masks and some different things in schedules, which we'll talk about. That is our goal. Now, we also are going to provide an online option for any family, the Tiger Remote Learning option. Families have been getting all calls and information on that. That is an option regardless of what the school year looks like. That is a full school year option for families. So if they want to go to our website under parent resources, if you have decided you just want to keep your student home for whatever reason, we will educate them in our Tiger Remote Learning option. It will be our staff members meeting with your students. It will look very different, and I'm going to get to that here a little bit in one of the slides. It will look different than what it did in the spring, even though our teachers did a heck of a job. So Schedule A is all students are here Monday through Friday. Schedule B, and this will be dictated by local health advisories, we will have 2 groups of students across the district, a Group A and a Group B. And this is out of the direction of the health department to reduce our class sizes to 50% so that we can socially distance kids. I'll talk about that in a minute. Group A will be here on Monday and Tuesday. Group B will be here on Wednesday and Thursday. The days that students are not here, they will be remote learning. And then Schedule C is when, like March 13th, when the governor says everybody has to go home, and we're all working from home. So we felt like it was imperative to be extremely transparent with our community about the differences of these plans. And I'll dive into a few things here in a minute on A, B, and C. But there are things inherent upon those schedules, A being here all day, B is that 50% of students are here, Group B, and Schedule C is everyone working from home, that provide different risk levels for families and students as well as for the district as a whole. So this slide shows that the COVID-19 health risk per our health department is highest with all students here. Again, they've talked to us for months about the fact that large group settings, there's an increased risk. We have 2,300 students. The elementary has over 1,100 students. That is a large group gathering. The health risk is, even though we're going to try to mitigate it as much as possible, it's higher than the others. Schedule B, we're reducing the number of students. We're reducing that risk. Schedule C, students are at home. From a financial perspective, for us to pull off having every student here and socially distancing them as much as possible is extremely costly. It is our belief that we need to support families in this community who support us all the time via taxes and support in other ways. And this is our way of stepping up and trying to provide that support. But we need to be clear and transparent with families and help them understand. I have to hire a number of additional staff members to spread students out. We have already spent thousands upon thousands of dollars in PPE. Cleaning supplies will be massive. We've, from transportation services, it will be an extremely costly thing for us to do as a district. Again, that reduces with the schedules. Schedule B is a little less, and then Schedule C, students are working from home. And then lastly, from a social emotional perspective, and this is national data. You saw a story from the news last night about Pickaway County and social emotional support. When students are here, we can support them from a social emotional perspective. We can love on them, we can encourage them, we get them fed, we get them what they need. The less we are here, the less we can do that. It's just the way that works. What questions do you have on that before I get into some of the specifics of the plan?
I think you hit it. Just to reiterate so everybody understands, I've had 2 or 3 people ask me, so what's the advantage to only going 2 days a week? I said, the advantage is there's only half as many kids there.
Yeah.
I don't know if people understand what we're doing there. So there's only half as many people. They're spread out more.
Yeah.
We thoroughly clean between group changes.
Correct.
Which we'll clean every day, but
Right.
a deep clean between group changes. So I think it's important that people understand why that would be an option.
Yeah.
Also, the pointing out, and this might be in your detail thing, but following Tony's dovetailing there, the instructors at the elementary level will be the ones that rotate and not the students, which will be helpful as well, keeping the groups of students together and therefore contained and less exposure.
Yeah. Good, very good points. Let me get into this, and then that may spark some questions. Go
I
ahead.
could. I think the first 2 circles,
I can go back. You're good.
the health risk and the emotional risk and social, outweigh the financial risk exponentially. We need to do, as a board and a district, what's best for our students, no matter what the cost. And, and then if we need to adjust later, in years to come or months to come, that's what we do.
Sure.
Because, what we do here is vital, to our community and our students and our families. And that right there, we're a family. We need to take care of one another, and you make sacrifices here and there. And so the financial risk, we have to put that aside and take care of what's important.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we recognize that students being here on campus, they say the number one indicator of success for a student is that teacher standing in front of them.
That's right.
And that's not just from an academic perspective. We've all had teachers who, were able to relay information to us or just cared about us in such a way that, it pushed us forward as people. And that's really hard to convey that through a computer screen when you're at home. Our staff did as best they could, and we'll do the best we can in those scenarios, but it's worth noting, it's proven that's the number one indicator of student academic success. I'm with you. We are doing this, we're creating and laying this plan out for a year. I want to take a step forward and show the community that, we're going to do everything we can to meet every need of their student, but we'd be remiss if we didn't let them know that there's a cost incurred in that. So let me walk through the alert levels. This will help frame up going through Schedule A, B, and C. So in working with our health department, and you may have also seen this indicated in Tays Valley's plan today, that it was encouraged of us that we link our schedules to the levels that your county is on at that time. So Schedule A, again, is all students in school Monday through Friday, socially distancing as much as possible, in masks, and that's at level 1 and level 2. At level 3 would trigger that reducing class sizes and going to Group A and Group B, one Monday, Tuesday, one Wednesday, Thursday, all remote on the days they're not physically here. In that scenario, again, spread out more, and again, that's triggered by the state and county alert levels. And then at level 4, we would be forced into a scenario where everybody goes home. You've heard the governor talk about flexibility for school districts and communities basically being able to respond to the unique needs of their community, and this is our way of saying, in our community, if this is our level, here's our plan. So one thing I want to mention here is that it is not our desire, and it won't be our plan, that we will move in and out of this on a daily basis. The governor's levels, I'm told, are supposed to update on a weekly basis. We are going to do everything within our power to make sure that we can communicate with enough time to families to let them know if we are moving from one level to the next. I also want to note here that we all recognize that we're at a certain level currently in Pickaway County. So when you look at that plan, we need to recognize that there could be things that we start the year differently than maybe other school districts start in Pickaway County versus maybe a Ross County or a Fairfield or a Fayette or whatever. And again, we will communicate that ahead of time, but to get this plan out to families so that they know our schedule will be linked to what the alert level is. Questions on that? Go ahead.
So my first question is, my understanding is we went to red with like 2 hours notice or something.
Right.
Has the health department given you any indication that they're going to get better at giving us more time? Or how much time do we expect to have if we have to switch from one to the other?
Go ahead.
I guess I understand the desire to have forewarning of changing statuses. However, if this is truly we are red, then we're red the next day. I mean, I don't know how else you do it.
Yeah, but I guess my question is more about, can we react in time, and what do we have to do to make sure we can react in time?
I can tell you in the previous scenario, I have been told by health officials that there wasn't a ton of warning even for them from a
Right.
county level, and they have requested a different form of communication in the future. So, and of course we said, hey, could we at least get a few days notice? And they said that was our request. So I'm hopeful that we're talking about maybe like on a Wednesday or Thursday for the next Monday. But to Tony's point, if you go purple in a day, then, first of all, how many parents are going to send their student that following day? And if we can pull it off, can we pull it off? It really, that's one of those things that we don't necessarily control. What I'm trying to vow to families, if I have the ability to provide you advance notice, I'll give you as much as I have, because we recognize that will change plans.
Yeah.
Again, to reiterate to families, there is a remote learning option if you decide that you do not want your students to come on campus for next year. If you go to the Parent Resources tab on our webpage and go ahead and click on the Tiger Remote Learning option, you can go ahead and fill out an application for that so that we can recognize and start to plan for how many staff members we need to provide support for. And it is imperative that if you are considering that option, that you either start that process or you contact the district office at 740-474-4340. Again, we've put this information out in a lot of different forms. We'll continue to do that. To talk about this option, there is an application that goes with it. Prior to the start of the school year for that student in the Tiger Remote Learning option, parents will be required to meet with building administration. That is especially true at the high school. Why I say that is because high school students' coursework is aligned with graduation requirements. If students don't sign up for the right classes, they could put themselves in a scenario where they're not on track to graduate. Again, we're going to make that a requirement for all buildings, but again, at the high school, that is especially the case. We are requesting that families recognize if you are taking the Tiger Remote Learning option, that you're making a commitment of at least one semester. The reason for that is we are going to do everything within our power here locally for class sizes and class rosters. There will be scenarios where I recognize we may need to make some adjustments, but if you are a family thinking about this option, please think of it in at least a one semester commitment for you and for your student. And we will provide some FAQs on what that looks like later. We also want to reiterate, in this plan, students will have a teacher from the district. They will be provided technology support. They will be provided a device by the district. There is not request, but our statement here is, in that option, parents are kind of equal partners in helping their students learn. I'm not asking you to have your, sit and teach math, maybe what many of us maybe felt like we did in the spring for whatever reason, but we also know that we can't watch your student do every lesson all day. And if your student is not motivated in that way, we need to have buy-in on both sides. I promise, and I know my staff promises, to do everything they can to make this successful for students, but parents and teachers are kind of equal partners in this education process. The systems we're going to use in K through 8, we are using a platform, a learning management system called Florida Virtual. One of the things families told us was that there was a little bit of inconsistency in what the platform looked like for my 3rd grader versus my 6th grader, students in different grades. We're going to eliminate that for you. We have purchased a product talking about making investments for these plans where families will be able to utilize a similar platform. It will look the same. It is a phenomenal coursework that has been vetted and is actually created by a school out of Florida. And I think students are really going to like it. Again, it will be easier for parents to manipulate it. In grades 9 through 12, students will still be using Google Classroom. And in some instances, students will be utilizing another courseware called Play-Doh. That's going to provide some elective options for students. A lot of high school students may not use that option, but there will be students who do based on some of the coursework they need. One question I've gotten a lot, if my student takes the Tiger Remote Learning option, can they still do extracurriculars? The answer to that question is yes.
Assuming we have extra.
We're making assumptions. Yeah. Questions on that Tiger Remote Learning option?
And then the Florida Virtual is supplying the curriculum, not only for those online, but it'll be the same curriculum we use throughout K through 8.
Correct. All of our K through 8 classroom teachers will utilize it in the classroom so that when a student goes home, if a student has to go home for whatever reason, they'll already have utilized that coursework. All of our K-8 teachers will begin getting that training here in the next couple weeks.
And from my little bit of knowledge and research, it looks like a pretty sound curriculum.
Yeah, I agree. It does sound like people are walking on the roof up there.
Expansion, contraction.
Yes.
Yeah. Do we plan on using the Florida virtual curriculum for the rest of our district, or could that expand upon that area as well?
Good question. In this school year, K through 8, we're going to use it in the classroom and online for students in all scenarios. This is a new coursework for us, so we'll kind of play it by ear after. But I can tell you it's gotten really good reviews from the districts I've talked to, and they've utilized it in almost every platform after they've gotten used to it. At the high school, we really feel like from a Google Classroom perspective, our high school teachers put great resources on there. We really just need to align kind of the expectations there and the direct instruction piece, as we need to do K-8 as well. But we feel really confident in being able to do that. So we're at this point, this is what we're going to roll with for the year. Again, our hope is that we are successful in this entire plan this year, and maybe we can get back to some normalcy at some point after that.
So, and maybe this is more in-depth than we should go, and if it is, just tell me. We're on the Schedule B, and a student is in class on Monday, Tuesday. On Wednesday, Thursday, do they build on what they did Monday, Tuesday? Do they continue with what the other students coming in are doing on Wednesday, Thursday?
Will
Do
you
they?
hold that question for about a minute?
Yes. Okay.
Good question. Yeah. So let's get to that, and now we'll go through the plans a little more in depth, and then when we get to Schedule B, make sure I answer that question for you.
Okay.
So again, Schedule A, to reiterate, I'm trying to continue to help folks understand what the 3 schedules are. Schedule A is all students are on campus. That's Monday through Friday school. Face masks will be required when social distancing cannot be preserved in grades 3 through 12. We will increase sanitizing across the board, across the district. We will be sanitizing in between every single bus route. Again, we talk about increased cost in between every single bus route. We will limit visitors and volunteers to certain scenarios. We are canceling field trips until further notice. We are working to guarantee that in every single classroom we have at least 3 feet of social distancing, with a goal of some classrooms having 6 feet. Again, to reiterate, in some classrooms, students will be in masks for the entirety of the time. In some classroom spaces, we can assure social distancing. Students are spread out, they can take their masks off at that time. We are providing meals as we always do. Those meals will be delivered in classrooms K-5. Our staff will deliver those to the classrooms. Those are prepackaged with prepackaged silverware, individual everything. And then in grades 6 through 12, students will come down and grab their lunches. Those will still be prepackaged, everything to increase safety. All before and after school activities will basically be dependent upon what's going on at the time. We don't want to sit here and say in Schedule A that all activities will be on, because there's scenarios where they could not be, especially when it comes to the Ohio High School Athletic Association. So in that plan, what I would tell you is in Schedule A, we could have some things, other things we may not have. It just really depends on what the environment is at the time. So that is Schedule A. Again, Schedule A is our goal. Our goal is to have all students back on campus with increased social distancing, the mitigation, doing everything we can. A is our goal. B. If we are forced, based on the county levels, to move to Schedule B, again, Group A will be here Monday and Tuesday. Group B, students will be here on Wednesday and Thursday. On days when students are not here, they will be working from home. So if I'm a student in Group A, if I'm my 7th grader in Group A and I'm here Monday and Tuesday, on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I'm working from home, and my teacher is in charge of making sure that Monday through Friday coursework aligns for that student. Same scenario. If I'm my kid and she's here Wednesday and Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, Friday, she should have a consistent and seamless instruction from her staff member or her staff members, depending on the number, while she's at home. So essentially, from a staff member's perspective, those groups of students are still yours. They're just being split into those 2 groups. You're still planning for the week. It's just you have to plan for a couple different things. Providing the resource at home versus what students are doing here. That's why it's imperative from a Florida virtual, if you utilize that platform, you're using the same thing throughout. We have some things we still need to answer, those being how we provide direct instruction to those students who are at home. That was something that parents talked to us about. We're working vigorously on that. to make sure we can answer that. What I mean by that, if my kiddo is only here Wednesday and Thursday, how do they see direct instruction from their teacher on Monday and Tuesday? How does that work? And those are things that we will be getting out at a later time. So we've gone through the face masks. Grab-and-go meals will be provided to students. We are working with ODE to try and get meals for students on the days they're not here. So what do I mean by that? If my student is here on Monday and Tuesday, can we at the end of Tuesday provide them enough meals until the following Monday? It's almost like we did the grab-and-goes, but we're going to have to do it when students are only here for a couple days a week. Again, I'm going to say we're working crazily to get that done, but that is at the ODE will let us know if we're able to do that. So we are working on that. Remote learning days and any day your student is not here, including Fridays. Let's see. Tuesday night and Friday are going to be, as Tony said, we're going to clean a ton every single day, but we will be doing deep cleaning and sanitizing on Tuesday nights and on Fridays. We will have to adjust some roles of staff members. We have to provide some new cleaning equipment, those kinds of things for our cleaning staff. But Tuesday nights and Fridays will be extensive, even though every day, obviously, we'll be doing that. And then on Fridays in this schedule, we do want to let families know there may be certain groups of students for numerous reasons that we contact families ahead of time and request they come in on Fridays. This could be numerous scenarios. It could be for gifted support services. It could be for related services and therapy services. If we have the opportunity, because remember, we won't have students in this plan here on Fridays, so we could get them here and spread them out. And we want to look at certain subsections of groups of students to provide added support if necessary. That will be communicated by building administration to families well in advance so families can make those adjustments if they are able to. And in that scenario also, we will still provide transportation for that. So I know that would be a question. And Schedule B, we assume all before and after school activities will be canceled. Did I answer your question on that?
Yes, you did. One more scenario.
Okay.
We won't know how that separation of Group A, Group B until we get into the weeds, and
Great question.
because we can't just say A through L when we have a class full of everybody that's M through Z. Hey,
Yeah,
that's pretty good there.
yeah. So we will. Our goal is to let families know as soon as humanly possible which group your student will be in. We didn't want to release that with the plan at this time because there are a number of different scenarios where students have and one of our goals will be that students in your family will go on the same days. Sometimes students have different names that could put them in different categories. You had just noted the other thing. Sometimes we have class lists or class rosters that are heavy on one group or one name group or letter group versus another. So we're still working through that, but our goal is to get that out as soon as we can.
Okay.
We talked about masks, and we also mentioned the importance of families before a student leaves, temperature check. Are we doing an additional layer of temperature check at the school as well?
So we are preparing to be able to do that. I don't want to jump the gun and say that's going to be super possible for us to screen every single kid when they walk through the door because we've met with vendor upon vendor upon vendor who has said, hey, we can provide you X, Y, and Z for that, but it still requires students to stop, and then you have to do that scan. And if you're talking about an elementary building with 1,100 kids, we could create our own social distancing nightmare with 5 or 6-year-old kids. So we are urging families to do that. With that being said, we are stocking up on thermometers that if we need to provide that added layer, we can do that. Schedule, I'm sorry, did you have a question, Chris?
We have a student that is showing all the symptoms. Do we have a plan of where are we going to be able to stage said student until the parents can get to the school to pick them up? Because some parents may work out of town or have after-school programs that the kids go to, or how are we, or have you thought about how we're going to facilitate that?
Yeah, absolutely. We've thought a lot about that. So in each building, we will be creating, and we've been asked to create by the state, a quarantine space. And that quarantine space will be for that exact scenario you've created. A student comes to school, maybe throughout the school day, begins to feel ill and is showing numerous signs and symptoms. Then the nurse will work with that student. That student will remain in that space, observed and watched over, obviously, until their guardians or parents can come and get them. We are working on what sanitizing looks like in that space, and we've already identified those spaces within the building, or within all 3 buildings. But yes, we have talked through that. One of the things I will say that has been a big question about that is the last part you brought up is, if students are, their families are out of town and they cannot come and get their student, I have to urge families to think about who may be able to come and get their students. Again, I recognize these plans, that's why I didn't say at the beginning I'm excited to roll this out. I'm not. These are going to put it's going to be an inconvenience to everyone. It is an inconvenience to everyone, and I recognize that. If a student has signs or symptoms, we are hopeful that someone can come and get them, because we have 2,300 students, and our understanding is only one student who shows signs and symptoms can be in one space at a particular time. So if there's some instance that we have another student or a staff member, we've got to find a whole different space. And to social distance, we have to use every space in this building. So again, I hate to implore or request, but think about the scenario if your kiddo is sick, and figuring out ways that someone can come and pick them up, just so we have that space available if another student is ill. So good question. Thank you. Remote learning is what we did post March 13th with new updates and new supports for students and for staff. All students will work from home in this scenario. We will go back to, as long as ODE allows us, we'll go back to the grab-and-go meals platform to provide students meals for the week. And then this, again, I won't spend a lot of time here because I think we're all very familiar with what this looks like. But the district will work with the health department on how we kind of move in and out of those schedules. Any questions on the remote learning? And again, that is if we're in purple, level 4, and all students have to work from home. Okay. Transportation. All students and staff on buses will wear masks. It was the highest requirement from the health department in our conversations. We will, in between routes, clean all of the buses and sanitize all of the buses. If your student does show up to the bus stop and does not have a mask at that time, we will provide them a single-use disposable mask that they can keep on for the entirety of the day or until that mask is soiled. But they will be required to wear a mask in all grade levels, pre-K through 12. Again, a clarification. All students pre-K through 12 are required to wear a mask on buses. Students who are in preschool through 2nd grade, when they're on campus, are not required. We're just recommending it. Grades 3 through 12 are required unless there is social distancing in effect. We are encouraging families, if you can transport your child to school this year, please do so. We are one of the biggest issues we run into, or barriers I should say, is we transport any student and every student, and we're very city proper, and so we transport a high percentage of our students. And because of that, it's impossible to create a scenario where we can social distance on a bus. Many buses have at least 2 students per seat. The more students we can get off the buses and that can ride with their families, the better in regards to safety on the buses. Again, we recognize that's not the scenario for everyone. We are going to bus everybody in those instances that need busing, but if you are able to get a ride to school, please do that. A couple other things that we do also want to mention at this time is we are probably the only school district that I know that has allowed what we call our day variant busing. And what I mean by that is if a family a parent called before typically 1 or 2 o'clock in the day and made a change of the bus stop for that child on that day, we would make the accommodation to transport that child to the new bus stop. First of all, that's a very dangerous thing, especially when you're talking about elementary kids, and that's where it happens the most. Because if you get a call at 1:55 that Johnny needs to go to Watt Street as opposed to High Street, and Johnny's 6, and Johnny may not know, then we're talking about communication from the office to the teacher, to the student, and to the bus driver to make sure that student gets to that spot. Now we're in this COVID environment where safety is always of paramount importance, but now we need to make sure that seating charts on buses basically remain the same. We need to make sure that if a student is riding the bus, they're sitting in the same seat with the same kid every single day, because the health department is adamant that they need to be able to contact trace. And if we're moving students from bus to bus to bus, that's not going to be possible. So we are eliminating day variant busing this school year because it is very, very difficult. Now, what I will say is the question we will get is, hey, the bus stop will change for good. Call us, we'll work that out, but what we're requesting is if your student has 3 different stops, 3 different days, we cannot accommodate that. We're just not able to do that. And again, that came from the health department in regards to seating charts. Questions on that?
On the encouragement to drop off students, I haven't experienced it at any building besides the elementary school. Actually, I did. The middle school is not too bad. Didn't seem to be. At the elementary school, can we open up the window so that we can have a little less congestion?
You mean from a fresh air perspective?
No.
The time
Drop
window,
Drop off.
make it a bigger,
Oh, I was thinking physical also, I was thinking ventilation.
but that's a good idea too.
Yeah.
From the, well, you've seen it. It's very congested back
Yeah.
there, and everyone's lined up waiting to drop their student off.
Yeah.
Before we can allow them to come into the building, which I understood that.
Yeah.
But in this situation, can we make that a half-hour-long process instead of a 15-minute?
We can,
Long
yeah, we can
process.
definitely look at that, and the time of day alteration may actually adjust that for you here in a moment. But
Okay.
yeah,
Maybe some painting of lines or, so we can improve traffic flow or, and I'm not saying even at the high school level to be more laxed on tardiness, but,
Social
they're,
distance
they're trying to get in the building and they can't,
Yeah.
because the parking lot's backed up for the high schoolers to park and they're waiting on the elementary school to get out of the way,
yeah.
The
The FAQs, as we get through those, so one of the things we're going to have to do is really go through and mock the student day from arrival to dismissal and to make sure we can create those procedures that we may not even be thinking about at this moment. All really, really valid points. May have to look at, where kids park, how they come in, and kind of leads me to this slide, which this is obviously one of the biggest adjustments in my recommendation for the school year is start and end times to the school day. Again, the reasons that we're making this request to change the start and end time at each day really have to do with social distancing and our transportation needs. At the elementary school, we have 1,200 students who show up every single day, and it is impossible to get them in and around the hallways and social distance them, especially as they arrive and they leave. So in this plan, we are adjusting every school's start and end time. So Circleville High School will run from 7:15 a.m. to 1:20 p.m. The middle school will run at the same 7:15 a.m. to 1:20 p.m. The elementary school grades K through 2 will run 8:20 to 2:20, and the elementary school grades 3 through 5 will run 9:20 to 3:20. You're noticing about an hour in between the start and end times there, and that is essentially what we've calculated to be able to clean all buses in between routes and get students in and where they need to go on time. So this plan will allow for allow us, especially in the high school and the middle school, they've been working on a schedule to make sure that gets students the number of periods they need, the classes they need, all of those kinds of things. And at the elementary, it was really about arrival and dismissal, and having the right amount of supports to spread kids out and transport them effectively. Questions on start and end times?
So I understand the need for all this. What was our previous start time?
So the high school started at 7:40 and ran until 2:40. And that was high school, middle school. The elementary school started about a little over after 9 and ended at 3:25.
And I'm trying not to be personal here, but I have concerns with 7:15 a.m. That means students will be getting on buses as early as 6:15 a.m.
So we
That's
ran,
pretty early.
we ran the busing, and it would adjust. The earliest student would get on a little before 6:30, which is 15 minutes earlier than they currently get on. Again, we recognize it's not necessarily the most ideal, and our goal is that this is only kind of a one-year thing.
I guess my question would be, what drove going earlier versus going later?
So if you go later, so let's say you push back. So you have to push everybody back in tandem. So let's say you start the high school at 7:40. Let's say they could technically.
Well, let's just say we do it an hour. What's the adverse to pushing everything back to high school, middle school, 8:15, elementary school, 8:20, or 9:20,
Right.
and 10:20, and we
So
get
you
out at
go 8. I'm a visual guy.
I-
I need to see it. 8:15 to 2:20, right? You're saying an
1:20.
hour.
Or 2:20, yes.
2:20. You gotta go to 2:20. Then you go 8. I'm sorry, 9:20 to.
That we felt too was the 10:20 became kind of a hindrance as far as starting that late
Yeah.
in the morning, as far as parents being able to.
Yep,
get their
that's
kids
true,
home.
that's true.
That was one thing that we ran into, we felt was one.
So
big issue.
the other issue is you're to be very transparent. Transportation is a massive
Oh, absolutely,
issue.
absolutely.
So if you push back the 3 through 5, because you have to separate K2, 3, 5.
Yep.
You cannot create a scenario it's not safe, it doesn't work. So you go 10:20 to 4:20, your buses are getting back at about 5:30 in that scenario. In that scenario, let's say you're still in Schedule A, your evening activities are off. And again, those are big. Plus, you got to talk about, you have some union contract negotiation things, as well as things that we could fit in this, that it's a little easier. And like Kyle said, starting at 10, we felt like it was better to start earlier as opposed to push everything back into the evening. When I started at Circleville High School as the assistant principal, students started at 7:20.
That's fine. I just wanted to play that through.
No, you're good.
And we're in difficult times, so it's
Yeah.
understandable. But
Yeah.
there have been studies that starting that early is
Yeah.
not a good thing.
Yeah. One of the other things to talk about from a K-5 perspective is, and Patty mentioned this in the middle school too, is that to do this effectively, students are going to be in the same space for a lot of the day. So teachers will rotate, kiddos will be in the same space. Talking about a middle school kid making that adjustments, and the middle school students will move a little bit, but we may have second, third, fourth grade kids who are in the same classroom, except for when they are able to have recess. Their specials are going to come into their classroom. So shortening the day a little bit for them, we felt like was, we're asking them to sit in the same space for 5.5, 6 hours, and in a lot of these instances with the same group of 2 or 3 teachers. So this does shorten our day. As far as the time frames also go, is making sure we have the right amount of hours per the state requirement, and that's why at the bottom we put the asterisk. This may require us to adjust our school calendar at some point to add or edit school days based on what the state allows from an hours perspective. We're told they may be lax on what hours look like, but again, we want to make sure and let families know. The calendar we have currently is what we plan to start with, but if the state doesn't make any adjustments to the hours requirement, we may need to pick up a couple of days here or there to account for that.
With Tony asking about the 6:15 kids, could we maybe do a half hour? And because I'm thinking in the winter months where those kids are out in the cold, that early in the mornings usually when, the sun hasn't risen yet, and the degree, the temperature,
Yeah, those are, again, you're
I'm just throwing out ideas.
you're good questions. I think to be, again, transparent, driving the roads, doing all those things that early in the morning, 30 minutes is not going to get you anything, because your sun's not rising in the middle of the winter until 7:30, 8 o'clock. So if you,
And it's coldest right before the sunrise.
right. So, really from that perspective, and I fully recognize this is outside of the mask thing. This is the biggest adjustment for us. And this, talking to our union, talking to our classified staff, this is going to allow us to check the boxes to provide as much as we can for students in the best possible way from an hours perspective.
Okay, I mean, I can accept all those, that's fine. The other question is, when we go, don't say when, if we happen to go purple and everyone's at home, will students be expected to stay on a schedule? Will it be this schedule? I think that would help.
Yeah, so our goal is that they'll be on a schedule. It will not be our expectation that CHS kids log in at 7:15. Yeah.
That's what I mean, was my point. So will we come out with other times?
So
Because then we could do everybody starting at the same time and ending at the same time, or?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And the other part of that is, from a parent's perspective, we asked that early on in that survey, how many of your students worked at night, worked at 7 o'clock instead of 7 a.m., and making the adjustment to be able to get support during that time too. So to answer your question, it won't be our expectation that Circleville High School kids grab, their Chromebook at 7:15. But we are going to provide expectations about what that looks like. And there will certainly be classes where we ask them, if they're able to log in throughout the day.
Still to come.
Still to come.
Okay.
Yep.
And I agree, I think that will help regardless of what age level, what grade level. I think once they go online, still having a set schedule is going to help, because it will also not only help the student to know, hey, this is the same, it might not be the same as at the brick and mortar, but it will be the same, but it also will help the parent to know, you've got to be on,
Right.
and you can tag team with each other. The parent can support the school can support the parent.
Yeah.
Neither one looks like the bad person.
Yeah. That collaboration between parent and teacher will be huge. The expectation piece, and our teachers have asked for this, not from a, getting out of work perspective. What's your expectation for me when I am at home? Many of our staff members were working 10 times harder from home than they had to here because they were, they're veterans. So the expectations piece for students, for staff members, for parents during this process, those are some of those to-come pieces.
Okay.
Just a brief snippet on timeline. Again, currently our first day of school for students in grades 1 through 12 is August 25th. The following week, we will have a staggered start for students in grades preschool and kindergarten. We will communicate individually to students' families for when they will start at their preschool or kindergarten students. That middle dot that doesn't have anything with it is the pumpkin show on our calendar. I know there are a lot of questions about
It just got canceled. Pumpkin show is formally canceled.
So,
News alert just came through.
okay, so Patty's
Breaking
breaking news.
news.
Well, it came through earlier and I didn't want to say anything, but
And we knew that decision was being made this evening, so we have a break scheduled there. And again, we'll look at our calendar and adjust accordingly. Nothing that we will just spring on families, but we know there are lots of things that could come over the next 4 or 5 months that may adjust. Thanksgiving break still in there, and then we did want to note that students who are taking that online option, if they decide after the first semester they want to return physically to campus, early in December will be when they need to let us know if they want to come back. So That is the basis of our relaunch and safe start guide for the 2020-2021 school year as of July 15th at whatever time it is right now.
8:31.
Okay.
Jonathan, in the event that we have a positive case, what does the exposure communication look like?
So very good question. And the communication we will send out to families tomorrow, we'll touch on that just a little bit. We need to let families know if there is a positive case, student, staff member, that all communication will be done via the health department. And there's a number of reasons for that, obviously HIPAA law and all those kinds of things. We as a school district aren't just stepping away and saying we aren't going to do that, but that will be directed at us by the health department. I've gotten the question a lot about, well, what if, I'm exposed by somebody that was exposed and those kinds of things, and we will deal with that with the health department. Folks have asked, well, how long will I be required to quarantine? That will be dictated by the health department. And as the health department tells us, there could be differing scenarios that require a different set of time frames depending on what testing looks like. So if there is a positive case, we will absolutely inform families, but in that communication it will say, if you need to do X, Y, and Z, that will come from the Pickaway County Health District.
Okay.
I would make a motion we approve the Safe Start Guide as discussed.
I will second.
Patty? Any further discussion? It's going to be difficult, but we got to do something.
Challenging.
We don't pretend this will be easy. This is, as our staff's done the culture stuff, this is the biggest E we've ever had to deal with. But we'll step up. We'll respond.
Okay.
After seeing Tays Valley release theirs this morning, there was, 150 social media comments in, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So I'm sure Evan's all
Stand
ready
by.
to start addressing those immediately. But I think we answered a lot of the questions that I saw on there today already. So
Good.
one of the questions that I saw come up a lot was if when we're on the split sessions or Schedule B, let's say, okay, we have a ward and a borough all in the same household. They would be on different days.
Right.
Can we get them
It-
together?
it
So
is
that's one of the big issues that I saw on
It
on
is
the
our
other
goal.
plans.
Yeah, it is absolutely our goal. And it's the main reason we didn't release because we talked about some alphabetical splits, but we didn't want to release those tonight because we knew that would create some of that. And this will give us a little bit more time to answer that. But yes, then we knew that would come up.
I think that'll be a challenge, but I think that's going to be really important for the parents.
Well, we feel like most likely there'll be an equal amount on both sides that we'll probably, one from the Wednesday, Thursday group coming over and swapping out. We just need to run it and make sure.
And there could be brothers that don't want to go in the same one.
Could be families that will be split up
Go
too.
figure.
Yeah.
All right.
I thank you and your team for, one, surveying the community and then listening to the community. So I think that's really important that was the driving force behind all of this. So thank you guys. I know you guys have been working endless hours.
Yeah.
So the community spoke and you responded.
We did our best, and as I told the staff in the email today, there was no way to answer every question and make it meet the needs of every single person because they're all very different. We just tried to do it with all the input we got and
Yeah.
to the best of our ability. So, it'll be an adjustment every day. This document is the beginning of our work. Now it's frantically getting ready for August 25th, but it's exciting to from that level to get it to the staff. So now the staff are clued in and they can really start to plan for themselves.
And along with that, I'd like to thank the other districts as well.
Yeah.
It's not every county in the state that's going to have one plan for all districts, which with slight modifications. But I think it's great. I would hope the health department appreciates that.
They
that we were willing to work together so that they didn't have to look at 4 different plans and say, well,
Yeah.
so that was good. All right, call vote.
Mr. Reeser?
Yes.
Mrs. Roth?
Yes.
Mrs. Tipping?
Yes.
Mr. Burrow?
Yes.
And Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Okay, we have any items anyone would like to discuss? I've got one quick one. Kristen and John, John with Andrea and Patty are going to request that you share some goal ideas for next year, 2, 3, 15, however many you want to come up with.
I can do that.
And then Chris and I will work with you to do the same thing. So just start thinking about that. We'll get in touch here in a few days and start working towards that, so we'll have it ready for the August meeting. Speaking of the August meeting, Kristen had shared that reports won't be ready by August 5th. So I'm going to propose right now, and we already discussed it a little bit, moving that meeting to the 12th. Would that be okay? Still give us time to make any hiring we need to do before the school year started, but not so early in the month. Does that work good for you, Kristen?
Yeah,
And
I'm-
same time of the evening,
Yeah.
just different day.
yeah.
Okay, so we don't need a motion to do that, we just change it, right? Okay.
We'll just send it out.
Does that work for you, John?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, so we're gonna move that to the 12th.
And a formal
And-
thank you to both John and Kristen and all the staff. I can't imagine, education has always seemed to have had a moving target in the sense of what your goals are. But this the pandemic has just thrown I can't imagine going into my job and not even knowing what I'm going to be doing. I mean, everybody in every job, you have a little variation. This is complete quicksand sometimes. So we have all spoken and have said how much and I'm sure people have expressed it to you directly, but wanting to say it on a more formal stage, we truly appreciate the sleepless nights, the constant phone calls, text, emails. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Patty, I appreciate that.
Anyone have any other items they'd like to discuss? We have no need for another executive session, is that correct? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Wait a minute, there is one more thing. What was there?
Up.
What did I miss? No, I
Take
didn't.
back
We're
my
all right.
motion.
Go ahead.
I move that we adjourn.
I'm sorry. Jeff, have a second?
I'll second.
Andrea, any opposed? We are adjourned at